This is Adrian Yanez from Acoustic Ranch. I'm a producer engineer here, and Larry, who he is the owner, producer, and engineer here. He's on the video today. Just kind of thinking about what it is, that makes for better performances, and kind of what it is that makes us. What is music, and how does it, and why does it appeal to us? Well, I look at it this way, kind of going back to the ancients. The music appeals to us physically, mentally, intellect, emotionally, and spiritually. It feeds us in a way that a lot of other mediums don't, and or they do, but not as immediately as music does. So what's that all about? Well, it's like for the musician, it's about eliminating the obstacles for all four of those things in music: physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. That you overcome these things that get in the way in those four categories. That's really what it is that leads to virtuosity and getting better and better on your instrument. Now, where do we start? Well, we have to start with physical, because obviously we had to sit down and play scales and work on all these things and develop our technique, and be very careful and diligent about working up and working with proper technique. And that takes time and it takes effort. And usually the people that succeed in music are the people that are willing to sit down and just do that. You know, that's what and 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 at the end of the day, they're satisfied with just working on the physical part of it first. The thing is, you have to suspend in a lot of ways the emotional and the spiritual part of it in some ways, and sometimes it's getting your mind engaged, but it all begins with physical. And most of the time when I see people who are very gifted, they have something inside of them to say, but it's the physical thing that gets in the way first. It's like, man, they're so on the edge, they need to go home and woodshed and work on their technique. That's what fundamentals are about. It's basically a way of getting the physical out of the way so that everything else, the emotional, the spiritual, and the mental part of the music, can come out freely without being obstructed by all that. And that is really what it comes down to, just the physical part of it, doing it, starting out with that. Also, and once you've accomplished that, you begin to accomplish that, then you start receiving satisfaction, because then you're able to communicate. You know, what's inside of you, the story that's inside of you to tell musically is now free to tell it, because your physical, you've overcome a lot of the physical things, partitions, the physical problems that are in the way of getting that done. Well, the same thing happens as you develop as a musician. You learn to communicate with your emotions. You choose the chord progressions you choose to play, or do a lot to bring that emotion to the music. The rhythms that you play, developing really good rhythmic sense and that kind of thing. Then there's also an intellectual appeal, where you can communicate something on a lot of different levels, not just emotionally, but also through the mind, in your mind. Oh, that's really a good idea. I like that. And ultimately it comes down to feeding your soul. It's about that process of where am I and what is standing in the way of feeding my soul. That's really what it comes down to. What is it that makes me a better player, in order so that I can be of service to others? And that really, at first, it may seem like it's a selfish endeavor to sit there and practice your scales and get really good at it and all that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to this: how are you serving others with your music? That's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, how am I serving others? Because ultimately, there have to be ears to hear what you have to say. You don't play music in a vacuum. Eventually you get out of it, you get out of your bedroom and you get out on the stage, or you go to church and you play for church. And that's where those gifts are now given to other people. Many years ago I played just a little thing at a conference, and a gentleman who was a psychologist came up to me after I played, and he says, "You don't know what your music did for me today." And, oh, my wife died about 3 months ago, and this is the perfect thing I needed to hear right now. Well, who knew, right? So there are points to why you practice, and ultimately that's what it comes down to. You never know when you're going to have that kind of a moment where someone just says, "Hey, this is what you did. It's what I needed to hear at this moment." Or, I was feeling kind of down, and you cheered me up. Or, I was having a problem with how I was relating with someone else, and just listening to you play has given me a solution to the problem. That's what musicians are for. That's what we're for. We're the people who communicate the ideas, the emotions, the sensations that other people don't do it so easily. We kind of act as a surrogate for them. So anyway, that's just some reflections on all this.